Hi everyone. We are standing outside of Julien's auction and I'm pretty happy about this one because they're doing a 2-day auction on Doris Day's personal effects, her clothing, her furniture, things that they've culled from her estate up in Carmel. And one of the reasons why I'm excited about this one is, if you know my name, there's a reason why my name is Doris. When my father emigrated to the United States, he actually had a crush on Doris Day, and when I was born, I was named after her. So I've always been a fan of hers, and curiously enough, when I was born with blonde hair and blue eyes as well. What happened? Anyway, they're going to have a lot of her clothing and accessories, and many of the pieces are pieces that were photographed or actually on camera on either television or on film. And the auction happens in April, so you have plenty of time to check it out online before it happens. And if you're interested, you can actually bid online as well. So we're going to go inside and check it out. Hi everyone, I have the great pleasure of being here at Julien's auction in Beverly Hills, and I'm sitting with Margaret Barrett, who's the specialist of entertainment, memorabilia, and this is a very special auction because nostalgia holds a very powerful force with people. People are really drawn to things that they remember from childhood or that their parents spoke about. And Julien's is preparing for a very big 2-day Doris Day auction.
Yes, we are.
So before coming here, I did a little bit of research, and what I saw, you mentioned that there'll be close to 1,000 items in this?
Yes, that's what we predict. We're not quite done, but it will be about 1,000 lots.
So when you have the gift of signing up to do an auction like this, Jason told me that you started working on this in October.
Yes, we went up to the house and did what we call a selection for sale, where we go and choose what items we want to sell.
So what does it entail? I mean, the concept of going into an estate, her place was up in Carmel.
Correct.
So you walk into this home that she lived in for many, many years. When you select items that are worthy of going into the auction, do you have to do a lot of research before, during, and after to amp up the interest in what the item is?
I think when you're in this business, you just inherently know what our buyers are looking for. And when it comes to a celebrity like Doris Day, virtually anything that she owned, touched, or used will be of interest to our clients. So we actually had a pretty easy job in the sense where we just went to the house and said, great, we'll take the closet, we'll take the jewelry, we'll take the shoes, because she was such a beloved icon.
Right.
And I personally have been a huge fan of hers for years. I mean, ever since I was a little kid. So for me, it wasn't hard at all.
What a thrill.
Yes, I just said, we'll take the whole house. But it was really fun, and it was special to be able to pick out these items. And the nice thing is everything's going to her Doris Day Animal Foundation, 100% of the proceeds. So I think that will make it even more special for the bidders, knowing that the money will go to a good
And that
foundation.
completely touches my heart, that she was such an advocate for animals for decades.
Yes.
You know?
I mean, a huge advocate, and even set up 2 or 3 different foundations.
That's great.
Yes, and that was in her will, that all the monies go towards the Doris Day Animal Foundation. So people can bid knowing it will go towards a good fund.
That's wonderful. I can't imagine what it's like for you to walk into a home and to get such an intimate view of a personality.
It's amazing. You really feel, I never met her, but once you go through someone's personal possessions in their own home, you really get a good sense of who they are, what their style was, what sort of stuff they kept around, what they decorated with, what kind of silverware and plates and forks they used. You really get a sense of them. And I think the sense I got from Doris was that she was very down to earth and loved being at home and loved entertaining at home and felt very comfortable in her own environment.
Were there any surprises in terms of things that you uncovered?
Not really. I think one surprise was that she did keep all her awards, and she got dozens and dozens of them, including many Golden Globes. She was nominated for an Academy Award. But the surprise was she didn't have them displayed. She had them wrapped up in boxes in the attic. So it showed me that her Hollywood career was something that was in the past, and she just wanted to live her life as an animal advocate towards the last half, and just didn't care to display all her awards. And
So Hollywood didn't define her
not
in the
towards
last
end.
20, 30 years of her life?
No, and the fact that all her awards were hidden away in the attic, it's just something she just didn't care to display, which I found
Wow.
very humbling on her end.
Absolutely. What I love about Doris Day, from my memory, is, you know, she always kind of portrayed the girl next door.
Yes.
You know, it was a time in television and also film where women were portrayed as the perfect wife, the perfect mother, and she dressed the part as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So, but a lot of the pieces that we have here that you've been so kind to pull out are classic, structured, tailored garments.
Yes.
And you were saying that that actually defined the kind of clothing that she liked to wear in real life as well.
I mean, I think now we would call her sort of an old school prep. She was very traditional. She had a very preppy look. She liked turtlenecks. She liked very simply cut, tailored items. And one thing I've noticed, and if you watch all her movies, especially the ones towards the end when she's a major star, and her television series, she really loved coats and capes and ponchos. And so that's why we've had these put on display, because this,
Yeah.
for example, is a very typical look of Doris Day. For decades, and it's a cape, and it's very late 60s. She wore this in 1968 on the Doris Day television show, but you could still wear it today and make it work.
Absolutely.
It's very classic
Classic.
looking. This jacket right here, you could probably buy one today off the rack. It's a little 60s in its cut, but it's very traditional in the sense that if you wore it today, you would think it was new. This red jacket is a replica given to Doris of the exact one she wore in Pillow Talk. So it's not the actual one from Pillow Talk, but we don't know exactly, but we think a fan made it as a gift. And it's, again, just as fresh today as it was 50 plus years ago.
Well, speaking of Pillow Talk, one of the things I loved about her, her collaboration with so many major male actors.
Yeah, everyone ever. She
Yeah.
worked with virtually every A-list male movie star.
But her friendship with Rock Hudson,
Yes.
and her support of him, and her fierce way of supporting him, hugging him, showing that he was safe, because once people knew that he had AIDS, you know, I think she really set the template for people to not be afraid.
Yeah, absolutely. She stuck by him. She had him on her television show, which aired in 1985-86 at the height of the scare of the AIDS epidemic. And she had him on the show and hugged him and loved him and said, "Welcome to my ranch." And I think that did set the tone for people to realize you didn't have to be so deathly afraid.
Yeah.
And that was very radical. People don't remember, but back in the early 80s, people were deathly afraid of the AIDS virus.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, as you're talking about that, I have goosebumps.
I know, I remember it.
Yeah.
You know, and Elizabeth Taylor was another one who was very instrumental. And I just am so appreciative that they were able to kind of allow the public to have a different awareness that we might not have had for years unless it was for them.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I find also interesting is for my generation, of course, I know and love Doris Day, but people who are 20, 30 years younger than me may not be aware of the fact that she really was one of the biggest stars that Hollywood and the music industry ever produced.
Oh, she was huge. And
Yeah.
she was huge for a good 20 years. She started her career in the late 40s and ended it in the late 60s, then did her television show, and then she was pretty much out of the Hollywood scene. But that's a good 20 years where she was number one at the box office year after year after year.
Yeah, wow.
Well, she was so beloved, and I personally think a lot of people could relate to her on a level that they might not be able to relate to a Marilyn Monroe or an Elizabeth Taylor, because she was the classic girl next door, which she hated. She hated that term, but I think a lot of people could relate to that.
Yeah, and when you think about the songs that are now a part of American history, and the expressions, I mean, how many people say que sera, sera, and not realize that it is attributed to Doris Day in a film that she was in?
And I think people even know the song and might not necessarily know now that she sang it, but people can sing a few bars of it, you know. And I think also Sentimental Journey. That's another one that was a huge hit during World War II, but it keeps coming back and it keeps getting played. And even though people might not know she sang it and made it hugely popular, oh, my grandmother played that, or I remember that at wherever. But she was a huge singer, just as big a singer as she was a movie star.
Well, she started off singing.
Yes, absolutely.
And what I find really interesting is if you look at her filmography, she did everything from rom-coms to Alfred Hitchcock.
I know.
I mean, wow, talk about diverse.
She did a lot of serious dramas, and she was actually a really good actress, as a dramatic actress, you know, playing some really harrowing roles where, you know, men were attacking her and, you know, trying to kill her. And I mean, looking at her movies now, some of them are actually really still scary, 50 plus years later.
One of the things that really irritated me when I first moved to LA was I would get celebrities coming into the store telling me that they can't wear something more than once. And I'm like, why not?
Right.
And now, fast forward 15, 16 years later, with the sustainability consciousness, you informed me, and I love knowing that Doris Day was not anti-wearing something more than once.
No, not at all. We see her wearing the same coats, outfits, shoes over and over and over again.
Can you tell us a little bit about these shoes?
Here's a good example. These shoes, which are just these great, very kind of early to mid 70s platforms, she wears in 1974 on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. And then 2 years later, she wears them again on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. She wears a different outfit, but the same shoes. And I don't know if she even knew or understood or remembered, or she didn't care, but in any case, they're fantastic shoes and sparkly, and they actually sparkle as she's walking out onto the stage, so maybe she knew that, and that's why she wore them. And then she saved them, and she probably wore them many other times, but we have those two documented accounts on TV.
Did she save them with notes saying worn on Johnny Carson?
No, not at all.
So how did you get that info?
Well, I found them in her closet, and a lot of her shoes, you know, were in a closet like they are, and these were sort of set aside. So I thought, I wonder if they were special to her. So she had a couple kind of fun pairs of shoes set aside, and I just started doing some Google research, and I found them on a YouTube channel of her with Johnny Carson.
Wow.
And then I kept looking at more Doris Day interviews. I'm like, hey, there's the same shoes 2 years later. So, and they're just fun. They're in great shape.
They're beautiful.
And again, you could wear these today.
I would wear them today.
They're very classic, and you could pretty much wear these in 2020.
That's great. You also mentioned, I believe, this mandarin collar side button coat as something that she wore more than once?
Yes, she wears that in her 1968 film called Where Were You When the Lights Went Out, which is sort of a fun romantic comedy. And she wears it right in the opening scene where she plays a Broadway star. And then she wears it a couple years later in her Doris Day TV series, which ran from 68 to 73. And I think she wore it in the first season, so she wears it basically the same year, just in a different format on the TV show. And she also wears it in tons of publicity shots. So a lot of still shots to promote both the film and the TV series.
My favorite piece of the things that you brought out is this coat.
Yes.
The style is divine, with the leather piping, the kind of trapezoid or not quite square pockets,
Right.
And it's something that would be relevant to. I mean, actually, everything here is something that would be relevant
you
today.
You could still wear everything today. She
Yeah.
wears this on the Doris Day TV show in 68, 69. She also wears it on an album cover with a different hat. She wears it on the cover of TV Guide with this hat. So again, she wore it over and over again, got a lot of use out of it, and then saved it. So this piece will probably have estimated at about $1,000 to $2,000 since she was photographed in it and wore it on screen. Same with this yellow jacket, $1,000 to $2,000. $1,000 to $2,000 for this one as well. And then these will be a little less because we don't necessarily have photo documentation, so probably $400 to $600 or $600 to $800. But everything is priced very reasonably so the fans can all participate. And the shoes, I'll Probably estimated about 400 to 600, since she did wear them 2 different times on a TV show that we all know. But ultimately, it's going to be a very conservatively priced auction.
Great. So that means there's something for everyone, hopefully.
That's the plan. We hope that if you love Doris Day, you can at least go home with one lot.
That's great. Wow. Well, we specifically wanted to do this episode in advance of the auction to tip our subscribers off to the fact that if you're a lover of Doris Day,
yes.
and if you are hankering to have a piece of Doris Day in your home, you can check out the preview online. All of the items will be cataloged and available, and you can actually bid online. Yes. So if you're not here in the LA area, don't miss your opportunity to actually, from her estate to this auction house to your home. This is a great opportunity.
Basically, directly from Doris Day's own house, someone could own something that she herself owned, touched, used, and loved.
Yeah, great. Well, Margaret, I appreciate you taking the time to share these beautiful pieces with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So this week's show off is it's our homage to Doris Day. Just a reminder that Julien's auction will be doing Doris Day's personal effects, her clothing and her things that were in her home, on April 4th and 5th. And Doris was someone that is near and dear to my heart, and this particular dress is a dress that I'm sure she would have loved to have worn. Daisies were one of her favorite things, and it's a great piece because it really shows off your figure. The construction on this is great because it tapers with darts at the waist and then flares out. So for those of you that love our episodes, we hope you will subscribe. There is a subscribe button on this YouTube channel. And you want to stay tuned because we have some really good episodes coming up. And we plan to do more live stream sales because the store is closed because of this crazy world that we live in right now. And many of us can't live without shopping, so we will bring the shopping to you. So that's it for now. Please be safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.